Okay. So recently, the Grammys, I think the 65th Grammy edition had come out, and I put up some numbers, and I said that Michael Jackson, Luther Vandross, Marvin Gaye, and I think I might have either put in Teddy Pendergrass, and said that those no, Prince. It was Michael Jackson, Prince, Luther Vandross, and Marvin Gaye. Those four combined have less Grammys than Beyonce. And and I also then saw that Aretha Franklin, Anita Baker, and Whitney Houston combined had the same number of Grammy Awards as Beyonce. And so it gets me thinking that as a recording artist, they will all say the Grammys is the top excellence. You know, those who have just been nominated will put that in their bio that we've been nominated 3 times. Those who have won would say Grammy Award winning. And I start looking at Michael Jackson when he came out with the Bad album. You know, he gave one of the best performances in Grammy history when he did The Way You Make Me Feel and Man in the Mirror. He had the biggest album in the 80s after Thriller with Bad. First person to have 7 songs in the top 10, and I think 5 from one album that was number 1. But I think he won 1 or 2 Grammys that year. He was supposed to have a clean sweep, and they just said, "Nah, we're not going to do a Thriller with you." No one crowd foul, and he didn't really win after that. And yet, it strikes me as some confusion that Beyonce can win Best Dance Album as well as Best R&B Song. It's almost as if, you know what, Beyonce, whatever you put out, we will give you and nominate you and give you the win. Jay-Z is probably the 3rd on the list as most wins by a Grammy, and an artist, 25 Grammy wins. And so, do these awards mean the same thing that they did, or have they ever meant something, or is it big politics? And if they are politics, why is Beyonce allowed to be top of the mountain, composed to the ones who, you know, a Whitney Houston, who's known as the Voice, having just 6 Grammys?
Okay, I'm gonna put it in perspective for you. I've been watching the Grammys probably since about 1980, 81. And there's a moment in time where watching the Grammys, you didn't have a lot of Black people winning Grammys back then. But I'll say this, you know, when you look in terms of Black people winning Grammys, and you say, okay, like some of these people only won 4 or 5. What I always go back to history. You gotta look at who were they competing with at the time. And you got to look at who won Grammys during the years that they were nominated. Like there's a period of time I'm gonna give you between 72, 73, 74, 75, and 76. Stevie Wonder won Record of the Year 3 out of those 4 years. And the only reason why he didn't win the 4th year is because his album didn't come out until the following year, until 77. So in 74, 73, 74, 75, Album of the Year. You know, and he won against some heavy hitters, but at the time, Stevie Wonder was dominating in a period of time where there were so many Black groups that were out. And back then, the music was kind of like segregated. You didn't have a lot of categories. It was just like soul, R&B, pop, rock, or whatever it was. And so when you look at the quality of the music was so high that people were nominated. It's just that they just did not win. So you would think, looking back now, because it's kind of revisionist, like how come they only won 4 or 5? But Marvin Gaye never won a Grammy. He won his first Grammy in 1983. He never won a Grammy. Now, mind you, think about it. What's going on? Let's Get It On. I Want You. Man, these are classic albums. But at the time Marvin Gaye was competing for Grammys, Stevie Wonder was beating them out.
Okay.
So you have to look at in terms of that. When you go back, you can look at Wikipedia and you can look at Grammy Best R&B every year, and it'll show who won and it'll show you who was nominated. So there's a period of time where like classic 70s, you know, Stevie Wonder was like killing them. So, and then you had R&B, and it was a big issue with blacks in the Grammys. Groups like Earth, Wind & Fire, they were winning, but they weren't televising sometimes black people winning the Grammy. So, you know, you had that to contend with. But just to stay on the subject, when you look at during that time, R&B was just R&B. It wasn't necessarily a lot of crossover stuff back then. They kept it kind of segregated. So you didn't see situations where artists were winning year after year, the one artist winning like Grammys consecutively every year. You didn't start seeing that until much later. So when you look at Luther Vandross winning Grammys, but look at who he was competing against. And even though Luther Vandross was super huge around that time, you know, he should have had huger success, even though he was selling platinum, double platinum, triple platinum albums. His label had no desire to cross him over because they didn't like his music. They envisioned him to be a certain type of artist that he wasn't, but because he controlled the music, he controlled his destiny, but they really didn't push him on the pop side. So you always had that issue with the black artists. But when Michael Jackson comes out, 1979, Off the Wall, okay, the album sells 9 million copies. But you also got to understand is that during that time, disco was had this kind of like negative connotation. Disco had peaked, and what was happening, it was a backlash toward the music because pop and rock music, specifically rock, during the disco peak, they were off the radio. They just couldn't get any airplay. Nobody was promoting them. So rock music kind of was down here and dance music was up here. And Michael Jackson's record was in that dance vein. So when he won an award, you know, even though he sold 9 million copies, as far as he won Best R&B Album, but he didn't know pop, none of that, because at that point, it was just looked at as a black record. So what he did was said, okay, you know what? I want to be recognized on all platforms. So when he went back and did Thriller, he did a type of album that was like multi-format. So you had R&B, you had some pop, you had some rock. You know, it was more like a pop flavored record, but it still had his identity, his stamp on it. And then that's what set the tone. And because he was, and understand that there's a lot of people who were out at the time on the pop side, but he was selling so many records. And then from a video perspective, he was of his time. So the videos and everything kind of was like, it was synergy. And it all kind of combined, and that pushed him up there to be that huge Grammy winner. So when you see that, even though you have Anita Baker, she's winning Grammys and stuff like that, but you got to look at Anita Baker. She took a lot of years off. So when you look at, she only won Grammys. Think about it. She won Giving You the Best That I Got. You know, she won a lot of Grammys for that, which was very huge at the time. But there's a window, 86 to 90, she comes out, and then she takes a break for about 2 or 3 years to raise a family. Then she comes back. So, you know, when you got to look at the track record of these artists and what's actually going on. But what's happening is the music is now consolidated, all these different charts, but understand Beyonce is winning records with Destiny's Child. She's winning records as a solo artist. So the Grammys are piling up, but you know, when you look at the Renaissance, that album, she deserved the Grammys that she got because, besides the fact of being a huge popular album, when you have an album like that, and I compare that album to like Thriller, Off the Wall, or Bad. What I mean is that it's a singular record, and the person's identity runs through and through. It's a Beyonce. When I say it's a Beyonce album, you know, like sometimes people have albums out and the album is good, but it's really the producer. It's all about the producer. But a lot of those singular albums or whatever, where that personality shows through, you know, the music was good, and she won those Grammys. And think about it, she won, you know, it was R&B. Then she won the Dance Electronica, which was great because it was a dance record. So she won those Grammys. She was deserving of them. But I really believe that she should have beat Harry Styles out to have the album of the year because, but again, there's politics and all of that. So, when you look at how decisions are made, they can say, you know what, she won this, and yeah, Harry Styles should have got whatever. People are complaining about Bonnie Raitt, but you got to realize is that Bonnie Raitt, she's got stock in the game as an artist. But keep in mind, if we are of a certain age and we're used to a certain type of music, any music that's off our radar, we're not going to look at it as impactful. So there's a year, it must have been about 2010. Herbie Hancock won an album of the year with Joni Mitchell. And this is an era where all these pop and R&B records were huge, and they won. So the records, the music resonates. So I understand, and it's good, it's good locker room talk, barbershop talk, or whatever that is. But in the end, I think Beyonce is deserving. I understand that a lot of people say that, what the music industry has changed, and where they're just working with the same 5 or 10 artists, they just keep recycling them. I've heard those stories, but I've heard those stories 5 years ago. And you're always going to have an upper echelon of artists, and you're going to have a mid-tier, and you're going to have a lower tier. But that's the industry. That's not Beyonce's fault. Keep in mind, too, she's affiliated with Sony. Her and Michael Jackson, their careers parallel. They come out of a group. They come out of a huge group. They become solo artists, but they're both signed to Sony Records. Sony is an international conglomerate record company. So that means they're able to kind of get their music out. They're releasing their music on the most highest platform.
Yeah.
So when you release your music on the most highest platform like that, it's going to set you up for success. But I just think that with Beyonce, the type of records that she had, she makes a lot of anthems, and they resonated with people. And she just had a good year. Great records, but she has a unique style. I was reading a magazine article, and they said that she's not necessarily an originator in terms of music being, in terms of not say original creativity, but just original. But she knows how to curate and take different types of things and mix it all up and make it her own, which is what Michael Jackson did. If you watch Michael Jackson's videos and certain type of things, he borrows from outside entities, but it's filtered through Michael Jackson's identity. Same with Beyonce, Yeah. So I think, but the Grammys, it can be political. But what I've seen now, if you've seen how the Grammys has changed from how it was maybe 5 or 10 years ago, that's because you got younger people now who look like us who are on a Grammy board, because everybody was much older. So now you're starting to see a changing of the guard where it's more younger people.
But then what about now, the guy who won R&B album, Gasper?
But see, here it is. Like Chris Brown was upset. he didn't know who Robert Glasper was, and then he had a Twitter post like, we shouldn't be nominated in the same category. Why not? It's black music, it's R&B, but what it is, Chris Brown is doing hip hop R&B. Robert Glasper is doing like a traditional vibe of R&B, but that's what happens when the music is split into different categories. Like there's so many categories, like for black music, right? They've got the traditional R&B, and then they've got the contemporary R&B label. But it's the same with country music. Not only do they have country music, they have a category called Americana, and they have roots. You know what I'm saying? So the people are doing the music. So in order for them to fit into the categories, a lot of these categories are created. So Bonnie Raitt won 3 Grammys. So it was record of the year, whatever she had, and one was Americana, and then one was another like roots or country or something like that. So it's not just black music, because there's so many different categories. It kind of like broadens the playing field, but it kind of like splits everything up. So if you're looking for somebody to dominate across the board, sometimes it can happen, sometimes it won't. But you can blame the industry, but it's just the way the music industry has changed, because the music is changing, how the music is being put out, how the music is being created. So the industry is trying to keep up. And an example that I'm going to give you is rap music. There's a period of time when rap music was not winning any awards like that, because the industry they couldn't categorize it, because it wasn't necessarily traditional R&B, So they like when Run DMC had a big album in '86, They should have won everything in 87. They had the biggest album, Black Album. It sold 3 million copies. But because the industry at that point, they didn't know how to categorize and know what to do with rap music. You know, a lot of those groups like Run DMC, they kind of missed out in terms of like winning Grammys and stuff like that. So when you look at Black music, we talked about this before. Black music moves at the speed of light stylistically. So what happens is it takes a while for the industry to catch up. I know that there are a lot of veteran artists who are out in the 80s where they're watching the Grammys and they're looking at the people and they're saying, wow, they got these same people they putting out, and there are a lot of other talented people, you know. But what's happening is that, you know, the industry is aging out. So you don't see the broad aspect. I watched the Grammys, and to me, the best part, the highlight for me was watching Stevie Wonder perform. Stevie Wonder performed, and they had Wanye's sons, Boys II Men. His sons were performing, and you had Smokey Robinson. You know, that was it. Classic music. The rest of that, take it or leave it. You know, take it. You see all these people, they got the stages and they got all this sets and props and all of that. You know, but I understand it because that's the vibe of the music. You know?
Okay. Well, guys, let me know what you think. I mean, Sharon has made an interesting defense of Beyonce's record-breaking night with 32 Grammys. I mean, yes, she's won, I think, 3 with Destiny's Child, and then, you know, she's got a number of collaborative Grammys with Megan Thee Stallion and stuff, but it does seem quite a lot to be nominated more than anyone else and winning all those Grammys.
But you got to look. I'm gonna jump in real quick, but you got to look at the time that she was winning, who she was competing with, and that will kind of like frame her the impact. Of course, yeah, we can say the industry is pushing her, you know, but they can push you. But you got to deliver. You got to put the work in. But one thing I'm glad that she's the most decorated, she won, because there are a lot of times there's history in Black music where whenever you have a Black female artist, a lot of times they're either marginalized, they don't get the respect, or you get a white artist to come out and imitate them, and they become bigger. So when you look at Beyonce comes in a tradition of like a Diana Ross. Like everything that Beyonce was doing, Diana Ross did it first, but because Diana Ross was doing it at a time where no one else was doing it, it was looked at like almost like a novelty. Because Diana Ross was doing dance music, Diana Ross was doing pop music, she was doing R&B music, she had videos, it was the whole. She was in movies, so Diana Ross was almost like Beyonce before Beyonce. But you know, when you look at the music, it's just like it's like I'm glad that Robert Glasper got the Grammy, because he's been putting in great quality music for a long period of time. But as a spectator, sometimes, you know, we look at artists in terms of what we say is the bigger record, you know, or the higher visibility. And that kind of clouds our judgment. Respectfully, I respect everybody's opinion, but you can't say that, okay, Chris Brown didn't know. But I just hope to show you the disconnect with Black music between young and old. So if Michael Jackson knew who David Ruffin was, he knew who the Ozzy brothers were, he knew the continuation. How's it to Chris Brown? You don't know who Robert Glasper is, because that's the disconnection. That's the disconnection in Black music and Black culture. So if you knew who he was, you would have been like, okay. But the last thing is this. I understand the frustration, because Jasmine Sullivan, there was a period of time when she was like, before she won a Grammy, she retired from the music business because she felt like she wasn't getting pushed. Tiana Taylor wanted to kind of leave the business because she felt she wasn't winning no Grammy, she wasn't getting pushed. But I always say these people who complain or who have these issues, you got to look at the people who came before you, who never got a shot or who never got the respect or the notoriety that they should have gotten. And I'll leave it there.
Okay. Well, guys, let's know what you think about the politics and issues around Grammys. Is it Beyonce's fault? Or do we congratulate her for her high achievement of 32 Grammy Awards? We'll continue this discussion another day. Take care. Hey guys, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed what you saw. Please remember to like, share, comment, and most importantly, subscribe, turn on the notification so you can always be alerted when we have a new video. But thanks for watching. Till next time.